I think if I hear you call me Becky one more time, six-pack, I'm gonna pop your tops. All six of them.
Who are you?
Hey, this is Matt once again. Welcome back to another review. This is a Patreon request for Jack Thompson, and it is for, he wanted my thoughts on a couple episodes of The Simpsons. Now, for those interested, you can request pretty much any type of video, review, movie topic, reaction. Again, pretty much any type of video. You can request it either directly to my PayPal or join me on my Patreon. Both links are down below in the info box. If not, no worries. But three of the episodes he wanted me to talk about were 30 Minutes Over Tokyo, The Great LAOS Detective, and Trilogy of Error. But I figured before I do that, a little bit of history with me and The Simpsons. I do quite enjoy The Simpsons, especially the early stuff. I say early stuff because I do think it went a bit downhill. I can't tell you exactly how, like what year, what season, and I haven't seen probably one single episode of the past 5 or maybe even 10 years of The Simpsons, because to me it's so going on so long that if I try to go back and rewatch all this stuff, it would take probably an entire year to do so. I mean, it's one of those interesting things that I enjoy the show, I enjoy the voice cast, I enjoy the animation. Quite a few jokes worked. Even these episodes, quite a few of the jokes worked. I do enjoy the characters of Homer and Lisa and so forth, but on the flip side, it's interesting that that show's still going on. That show is still happening. But I don't know anybody that watches that show nowadays. Like, I would ask, does anyone here do you watch Simpsons? They don't know. When was the last time you saw Simpsons? Oh, it's been years. Then who the hell is watching The Simpsons to the fact that they're still on the air? I'm like, you know what? Maybe I'll go back and rewatch it when it's canceled so that, okay, I know there's an ending to when I'm watching this. Honestly, I think The Simpsons should have ended a long time ago, and if they wanted to make more do more movies. Now, I wasn't a fan of The Simpsons movie, so to me, it could get better. It could go up. Well, it can always get worse. What am I talking about? But yeah, I enjoyed its. At the beginning of the show, it seemed to have a bit more heart, because in the early seasons it seemed as if there was an actual care, actual thought, actual plan of going, hey, at the end of the day, we gotta show that these characters do actually care about each other, that people forget that one of the inspirations of Homer at the beginning was Walter Matthau, or that type where he was a dad, but he was doing the best that he can. And you watch the first season or the first 2 seasons of The Simpsons, it's very different than a Simpsons episode nowadays. Because the early episodes of The Simpsons, Homer was dumb, but there's like a limit to his idiocy. Homer would genuinely care about what his family thought of him, and there would be a little bit of an emotional crutch to certain episodes, wanting to do best for his kids, wishing that Bart would respect him as a dad. But because it went on for so long, and because they had to think of desperately, what do we do for jokes? What do we do with these characters? What do we do? Fuck it, you gotta get, and their thought process, we gotta be able to do whatever we want. And when you have no limit, then you can, even though technically you just say they've had a limit, because a lot of the times the episodes are just a regurgitation of something they did before. So it's like, oh, let's go to this place. For example, let's go to Tokyo. I mean, that was in season 10. And so when you get to a point where Homer's talking about, hey, what was the word he used? It was a sentence in The Great LAOS Detective, in one of the episodes Jack wanted me to talk about, where Homer says one of the dreams of a parent is that he'll outlive his kids. And it's meant not in a malicious way. I guess it's supposed to be another example of Homer saying these crazy dumb things because he's dumb. To the point that, not in one of these, but in an episode, he forgot to spell his own name. Or I am so smart. S-M-R-T. I mean S-M-A-R-T. So, and I will be honest, some of that was funny, but there's a catch-22 with that. And because you're going on for so long, but it's a cartoon, so you don't have the characters age. You don't have the characters, there's no way for them to grow. And part of me, at this point, I think when you get to season 20, you should just do that shit. Have a season where Homer has a full set of hair. Have a season where Homer is thin. Have a season where Marge, her hair is all the way down or in a ponytail. Or have it where an actual arc where Bart has moved out. Well, he's a kid, so that's the thing. Is that they have to stay like, what, 10 and 8 years old? I already forgot the ages that Bart and Lisa are supposed to be. It just, on the one hand, they kind of do, okay, these characters are going to pretty much stay the same. What new events, what new references can we put into? But it gets to a point where you go, okay, you're not even going to try to do anything different because you don't want to upset the status quo. Then the other side of me is like, well, you've been at this for how many decades? And then the few things they do was, in a way, a detriment. Like, one of the things that made me, I do like the Homer Simpson character, it's just the moments they write him into. Speaking of which, in one of the episodes, you have the character Frank Grimes Jr. The episode with the dad of that character, Frank Grimes, is one of my least favorite episodes, Homer's Enemy. Because here's a guy who you feel sorry for, and Homer, because of his stupidity, but also because of him just dumbassness, is to the point he became unlikable. And on the one hand, he seemed like, hey, he's smiling, he's being nice to Frank Grimes, but he does so many wrong things that he drives the guy insane into his death. And even at the funeral, it's people laughing because Homer does something at the funeral of this guy. And it's like, this just isn't that funny. And certain moments like that, they just, I think they do that because, I don't want to say shock value, but I don't know if you want to call it to push into what humor are you comfortable with, or hey, this is a cartoon, and so we do outrageous stuff that would not work and fly in the real world, but maybe in the cartoon world. And I just, to be perfectly fair, I can't say anything because I haven't seen an episode in years, a new episode. So I know they got rid of Apu, which that's a whole fucking situation that I could rant on for 20 minutes. Completely fucking stupid. People were offended by Apu. Apparently they finally gotten rid of the character. I don't know if they killed him off. I don't know if he just doesn't appear anymore. They're like, well, you know, it's a white guy doing the voice of that. Well, you know what? I guess you better get rid of the black people who voice white characters. Otherwise, you're double standard. No, my point is, it shouldn't fucking matter. If the person's right for the job, the person's right for the job. Doesn't matter if they're black or white. A black guy can voice a white character, and a white guy can voice a black character if it fits and if it works. Give me a fucking break. Bill Lamar has voiced characters that were not black. Are people making a fucking deal of that? No. And they shouldn't. But then it's that double standard stuff that I'm just sick and fucking tired in today's age. And Apu, oh, he's offensive. Why? Every fucking character on The Simpsons is stupid. And the dumbest character kind of looks like me. Except if I didn't have glasses. Facial hair, bald. That's why I shaved my head. Bruce Willis look. The white guy, Homer Simpson. Which technically you just say he's a fun character, he's my favorite character, but technically you can make an easy argument that he is the worst character and the fact of all the stupid stuff he does. Am I offended? Oh my god, I'm offended. I don't care about some of the stuff he does as a character that I remember watching back in the day and having the VHS tape of the Simpsons Christmas holiday where they got the dog, Santa's little helper. But offended? No. Not offended. So the whole thing is just stupid. Completely, utterly dumb. This Apu situation. Apu, he's a guy who's actually one of the smarter characters. I mean, everyone's dumb on The Simpsons, but he's actually one of the smarter characters if you actually watch the episodes. And anyway, getting back to this. It's like 12 minutes in, I haven't gotten to the episodes. But anyway, I watched many of The Simpsons. I did not have the channel, but my aunt would send us being the family, VHS tapes that she taped off of cable, because she had cable. So we didn't have Fox, she did, so she would tape The Simpsons and the X-Files and other shows, and I would watch The Simpsons from that. And, you know, grew up watching it, enjoyed it, was really into it. Then as I grew up, I kind of fell off, because I do think the emotional part of The Simpsons went down, and then they try to force it in there, and I just don't buy it anymore. I bought the emotion in the early seasons, not so much now, so I just lost I had less and less interest. The movie kind of, I wouldn't say killed it, but I just was not a fan of The Simpsons movie. There's like one or two jokes I laughed at. That's it. And that's an example of Homer being such a dick that I'm like, Marge should not take him back. Marge should divorce Homer and stay divorced. Homer doesn't deserve Marge. Even by the end of the film, Homer doesn't deserve Marge. And Homer Simpson, my favorite character on the show, and I'm like, the way they wrote him in this, he's a complete fucking dickhead. That symbolizes the later seasons of The Simpsons, in my opinion. It really does. That movie symbolizes why I don't watch the show much anymore. That's just my opinion. But the episodes, I did like some of these, and these were later ones. I mean, one's from season 10, one's from season 14, one's from season 12. I mean, they made what? Aren't they like season 30 or something? I can't remember. I wouldn't be surprised. But 30 Minutes Over Tokyo, that was the last episode of season 10. That's when the early days of the internet, something goes wrong, they have to be cheap, shop at the 33-cent store, for example. Then somehow they're able to get a flight to Tokyo, and they do some stuff in Tokyo. I liked this episode, some of the stuff that I noted, because I didn't want to forget. Homer has an issue of Wired, but he's like, oh, the new issue of Weird is here. And Lisa's like, no, it's Wired. The early stage of the internet, like there's a loading screen, and the picture loads like this from way back in the day. Homer's saying, I invested in News Corp, and Lisa warns him, that's Fox, Dad. And Homer's like, ah. I'm like, yeah, considering later on they got bought by Disney, I can see why you'd be scared of having stocks in fucking Fox. I would have been scared too. They do a seminar talking about how you should squeeze every penny, and Homer does actually squeeze a penny, but it goes to his hand, and then Marge goes, oh no, you did it again. And the penny like flows up. When they're on the plane, apparently it's not the voice of Jim Belushi, but it's supposed to be Jim Belushi. He's filming a movie on the plane. It's like, Toga, 2000. I'm like, there's gotta be a shot at like Blues Brothers 2000. And you know what? I wouldn't be surprised if Jim Belushi was asked to be part of Blues Brothers 2000. I'm like, no, I'm not going to do my brother's movie. Come on. When they get to Tokyo, things like there's this cartoon on TV that gives seizures, and the rest of the family gets seizures, and Homer just looks at him. He's like, okay, so he does it without realizing what's going on. Getty Watanabe, London Dawn from 16 Candles, he has a voice in this. George Takei, he's the host of a game show, he's a voice in this. I know Japan banned this because there's a scene where Homer and Bart are at a sumo wrestling thing, and Homer throws the Emperor into a pile of thorns, and Japan did not like that at all. So episode got banned. In Japan, at least, because of that. And it's one of those Japanese game shows that all this crazy, weird stuff happens. If you watch Japanese game shows, you know what I'm talking about. There's some crazy shit on those. I like the bit at the end when they're trying to fly away and they have some Godzilla-related turbulence. And you do see Godzilla as well as Mothra, Rodan, and Gamera. So the only time you don't see Godzilla and Gamera in the same frame is in this shot of the fucking Simpsons. And it's hard to review an episode that's only 20-some minutes long because, well, I don't know, when something's only 20-some minutes long, it goes at a fast enough pace that I don't really get bothered. Either it's a show I like or it's a show I don't. It goes by such a fast pace that it just doesn't bother me as much. Like, okay, that joke didn't land. Okay, just 30 seconds later, there's going to be another one. So, I mean, 30 Minutes Over Tokyo, I enjoyed the episode for what it was. LAOS Detective, that was an episode from 14th season. One that made me chuckle is that there's a George Foreman mail sifter. So Homer puts it in this thing and it'll shift it from good mail to bad mail, and the bad mail just turned to a sandwich. I thought that was kind of fun. Sort of take off the George Foreman grill. The plot of that is, at least another, they get to a sauna. Someone tries to kill Homer in the sauna, lock it. He gets out. So in order to find out who the killer is, chief of police decide, hey, let's get another killer. So they did Sideshow Bob, voiced by Kelsey Grammer. And Kelsey Grammer does a good job as Sideshow Bob. He appeared in a lot of episodes, usually as a guy who's trying to kill Bart Simpson. Because the first time he showed up, it was to frame Krusty the Clown for a crime. They got arrested, and they kept bringing him back, usually because he escapes and wants to kill Bart Simpson. There's one episode where he pretended he was going to marry one of Marge's sisters. I forget if it was Patty or Selma. And Bart thwarted that plan. Stuff, I wouldn't say I like this as much as 30 Minutes Over Tokyo. There are certain moments that did make me smirk. Why can't I remember his name? The cop. I cannot believe I forgot his name. I'm a Simpsons fan, I forgot his fucking name. Quimby? No, that's the mayor. Mayor Quimby. Oh my god, I'm... Wiggum? Is it Wiggum? I cannot believe it. God, I'm losing it. But he's like, where on my badge does it say to protect? And the other guy goes, second word, chief. Ah, man. I don't know, that made me smirk a bit. But then that's where you get the line where Bart's like, I can't believe you put my life on the line to save your own dad. And then Homer goes, you'll understand when you have kids, son. Which can be a funny line, but at the same time it's like, I remember back in the day, like the Homer in the first 4 or 5 seasons, he never would have said that. Maybe he did, I don't remember, but it seemed they were more into... I know, Homer's the type of guy that would choke his son, granted. That was always the case. It was kind of weird to complain about that, but it did seem like story-wise they actually tried to think about that a little bit. But, didn't ruin the episode or anything. It's like, okay, that's one line I didn't care for. Sideshow Bob... I wonder if he has appeared in the last couple years. Someone can let me know. But he does this thing where he puts like a dummy of Homer as whoever's your enemy, they're going to come here. And so Moe, the bartender, all these people just decide to beat up the dummy Homer. And then Homer gets pissed and attacks the dummy. He's like, once I kill you, everyone will know I'm the real Homer. And he attacks the dummy. Again, it's like, okay, Homer's really stupid. Some episodes you just go, just how fucking stupid he is. Well, they got one up it somehow. Jokes I didn't care for. There's one where Moe's, the bartender's jar of AIDS gets broken, and then there's like a little montage of pictures of him and this jar of AIDS. Like, that's a lame fucking joke. I didn't give a shit about that. It's like, what the fuck? So it ends with Homer being the king of Mardi Gras. They realize who the killer is. They chase him down on stilts. And the killer's Frank Grimes Jr. Who, of course, Homer doesn't remember who Frank Grimes is. He eventually does. I'm like, no wonder the motherfucker wants to kill you. He's such a dick. So the fact it reminds me of an episode I didn't like, I thought was a step down. I mean, overall, it was nice to see Kelsey Grammer's Sideshow Bob again. And there were a couple moments that made me chuckle, but I wouldn't say I loved the episode either. I didn't. For some of the lines, the fucking montage of Moe in his pickle jar, or his egg jar, pickled eggs, I don't know what the fuck he was, and being related to an episode. But overall, it was okay. And then Trilogy of Error, this was interesting in season 12. This one, they try to do something a little bit clever, where they show the same day, but they show it from different point of views. They show it from Homer's point of view, Lisa's point of view, and Bart's point of view. So you'll see Homer's point of view at a certain point, then it goes back, and you see it from Lisa's point of view. So certain things that didn't make sense in the first, now it makes a little sense. Or if you're a little bit confused, when you see Bart's story, then, okay, it makes sense. And I think Run Lola Run, the movie, was a little bit of inspiration, because it's literally a bit where during Lisa's day, there's an ode to Run Lola Run with the music. And I'm like, when I first saw it, because I do remember seeing this back in the day, I'm like, what the hell are they referencing? Now that I've seen the film and reviewed it on here, I'm like, oh, now I get the reference. So yeah, like Homer's Day, where he gets his finger accidentally cut off because he's trying to reach for the brownies. And when I'm saying like stuff you don't get, like during that, he's with this redneck, and then the redneck's truck gets stolen. Who stole it? You found out later who stole it. Oh, Dr. Nick, his hospital's on fire. Why is it on fire? Well, you find out later. And that was the fun of the episode. You do have an appearance of Rainier Wolfcastle, which is their parody of Arnold Schwarzenegger, which in other episodes he played the character McBain. And then funny enough, there was a movie with Christopher Walken called McBain. I think that's why maybe they didn't use the McBain too much after. Because it seemed like at first they would just call him McBain, but maybe because of the Christopher Walken movie McBain, they had to call him Rainier Wolfcastle. I don't know. This does have a line of dialogue I'm a bit surprised by, because the redneck, I think it's Cletus, the slack-jawed yokel, he says a line, and I had to rewind this a few times. Like, did I hear it right? And yes. Because the conversation is about magic and something, and he says, you could be one of them TV magic queers. I'm like, did he say the word queer? Magic queers? Yes, he did. Oh, you take away fucking Apu, but I was a bit surprised by that. So I'm like, okay. Now this show must be condemned. No, I'm not going to fucking do that. It was just surprising. But I'm not going to give everything on the episode. It was fun to see how things, like at one point there's an undercover and we don't know who's undercover, and you hear what you think is gunfire, but then when you see another day, you're like, oh, that's Bart. And no, that's not gunfire, that's fireworks, firecrackers, I should say. So again, that was the fun part of that episode. I wouldn't say there were a lot of moments that made me laugh, but the way the story was done and how they linked together, that was interesting. It was a bit different from the typical episode. Oh, you also have an appearance by Fat Tony, who's this mobster, voiced by, I want to say it's Joe Mantegna that voiced him. I could be wrong, but I believe that's him. But, you know, I always thought he did a good job on the voice of Fat Tony. And yeah, that was a fun episode. Like, that was fun and trying to do something a bit different and off the beaten path. And it worked out, I thought. I would say the one I got the most chuckles out of was probably 30 Minutes Over Tokyo. And the one that was the most interesting was Trilogy of Error. And if I have to choose a least favorite, I guess The Great LAOS Detective. Although I didn't mind it for what it was, but I would say of the three, that was the one I liked the least. But it's, like I say, it's hard to review an episode that's only 20-some minutes, because even if it's bad, it's over pretty quickly. Or even if a joke doesn't land And the next 5 minutes, there's going to be another 30 jokes that hopefully some of them will land. Like I said, I have no problems with the animation. The designs of the Simpsons are classic, with the yellow and the shapes and sizes of them. Marge with the beehive. Homer with the beard, all that stuff. There are some nice attentions to detail, like when Bart wakes up in Trilogy of Error, he wakes up with a Krusty the Clown clock, and then the two that poke him are Itchy and Scratchy, which Bart's a big fan of. So little details like that are nice. But it's also, there's never a consistency, because if you look at, there's always something different in their rooms, or there's always something different, but at the same time they're always wearing the same clothes, because they don't want to change on that. And once in a while they change it, but not for too long. So it's kind of like, I guess The Simpsons is trapped in that damned if you do, damned if you don't bubble. I would say for the last season or two, go out on a blaze of glory and do something incredibly crazy, insane, off the beaten path. Because it's not like a typical show where there's a consistent story. I mean, this is a show that has had Trilogy of Terror episodes where the Simpsons have died again and again and again. So it's not like there's a continuity to these things. Well, that's not true. There's somewhat continuity. For example, Ned Flanders, his wife died, and she stayed dead. And then certain actors who have passed away, they've kind of, those characters have never come back. Like Bleeding Gums Murphy, who's a saxophone player that Lisa befriended. Or the psychiatrist. The actor's still around, but they killed off that character. It was like the psychiatrist that was in the early... You remember the early episode of The Simpsons when they're being shot? It was in one of the Die Hard films as well. I think Die Hard 2, you saw that episode, like on a TV screen or something. It might have been on the airplane that Bonnie Bedelia was on, and the Simpsons like being shot. The guy, part of that was the psychiatrist, and they killed that character off long ago. But I would say, I don't know if The Simpsons, I hate to say it, it seems like the only way The Simpsons will be canceled is if one of the main cast dies. And no, I don't wish that at all. For people who want to twist my words. I'm just saying they're so adamant on making more and more episodes that I could see that's the only reason. Is if Homer, Dan Castellaneta, or Julie Kavner, or Yearly Smith, or Nancy Cartwright, if one of them passes away, then they'll... And no, like I said, I don't wish that at all. I think what they could have done is, like I said, end the series and just do movies. Just do movies. Because now Simpsons are at a point where we thought they were cool, and now they're still on and no one gives a shit. And no one's saying the Simpsons are cool nowadays. They're still fans. I just say I'm still a fan, but you took something that at one point was this phenomenal, the cool thing to like, and you really buried it. But it's still alive, so buried alive. You buried alive this fucking show, in a way. And you know what? Even if I watch the show, I probably get some enjoyment out of it just because I grew up with these characters, so there's a sense of I grew up and enjoy the characters and the voice actors. I probably enjoy it, but at the same time be like, instead of laughing or, yeah, just more of that indifference. Like, not minding it, but indifferent. Does that make sense? I don't know. Man, I'm just talking out of my ass like usual. But with that said, thanks for watching. Take care, and we will see you in the next video. Later.